decide, okay, whether you exit the market or stay in the market, whether you have the competitive advantage in the market or not. So there are different ways for a company to stay competitive, gain the competitive advantage in a specific market. There are 3 typical strategies. The first proposed is achieve the overall cost leadership. So which means you use digital technology in a way that can reduce the cost of your production and servicing, reduce the cost in your overall work process. So this is the first strategy is suggested. The second one is called differentiation. Just use digital technology that make your products and services unique, that cannot be easily copied by your competitors. That's the second strategy. The third one is called focus on niche. If you can't do either of the first two, so if you can't do, you can do neither of them, then you can choose the strategy of focus on the niche. Niche is a market, you need a small segment of the market. Unit is like serving a specific type of customers. For example, we have the mass vehicle market. So we have many different vehicle makers, manufacturers competing in the vehicle market. But you can focus on a niche like by producing the luxury vehicles. So the kind of customized cars only targeted those wealthy customers. So this is a niche, a specific segment of customers, but also a strategy if you cannot achieve the first two. But for those companies who can't do any of this 3, so he calls this position is stuck in the middle, which means you have limited competitive advantage in this market. It's better for you to consider exiting the market. For this 5 forces model, you probably have also learned from other modules. It's very popular, it's generalizable, it's structural analysis, it's easy to implement because it's a clear structure of pointers that you should identify with your company. But it has multiple caveats, especially with the evolution of organizations, with the evolution of digital business models. We started to see the shortcomings of the Porter's 5 forces model. So first, this model always assumes the relationship between companies are competitive relationship. You compete with each other. But as we talked about last week, there are many collaborations, partnerships, or even the rise of platform company ventures. They are starting to become important sources of value creation and capture. So how does this model account for those important activities, collaborative activities and complementary activities to business? The second one is, are the 5 forces always stable? So we see where businesses today, they are competing and collaborating in a highly dynamic market, highly dynamic situation. Your supply, your demand, your buyers, your new entrants, your substitutes, they are changing probably on a daily basis. So 2 weeks ago, NVIDIA's share price was still rising, but in the past 2 weeks, especially this week, it dropped over 13%. So businesses are operating in a highly dynamic environment, but Porter's 5 forces is not really a dynamic model. It just focuses on specific time point. So you can see, these forces can always change. So you need to constantly evaluate yourself, your external environments. The third one is, if we know these 5 forces, we know our company's position, what can a company specifically do with the 5 forces? It doesn't provide you with a specific guidance of, okay, where should I improve? What should I do to improve my position in the market? So you still need more specific theories and frameworks to help you dissect the nuances in your company's operation, the specifics. The fourth one, Porter himself also noticed there are 2 critical issues of conducting a good 5 forces analysis, where sometimes we call it industry analysis, because five forces analyze a company's position in a specific market, in an industry. So the first one is you need to choose appropriate time frame. This is something, these 2 points are, or both points are were added by Porter later, after he initially proposes for hypnosis to shortcomings. You need to choose the appropriate time frame. As I said, are you analyzing your company's market position just for this year, or analyzing your market position in the next, in the past 5 years, or in the next 5 years, or 10 years? So what is your time frame? That makes a difference to your analysis result. And also, the 5 forces. It's very easy to just draw a conclusion by looking at a company's, okay, it seems to have a lot of customers, so it should have a strong bargaining power itself. But in real practice, this kind of information can be really misleading. You really need a rigorous quantification of the 5 forces. So how are you going to quantify the bargaining power of the buyers? How are you going to quantify the bargaining power of the suppliers? The threat of new entrants? There are always some metrics these days that companies use to assess the 5 forces. So when evaluating using Porter's 5 forces in your assessments or in your practice, so try to remember all those caveats of Porter's 5 forces model and what you can do to mitigate it. The last one, we talk about five forces model is specifically focused on analysis of external environment. But among the 5 forces, there is one important force, external force, that is missing. That is institutions. So as we see in policies, regulations, they have huge impact on different companies. Even the tech giants, they need to follow the policies and regulations. So but these 5 forces didn't really account for that force. So that's why we introduced the next theory. So this is an institutional theory to complement our understanding of a company's, a digital business, external environment. So institutional theory, this is a theory, sociological theory. It explains the sources of competitiveness of a company by explaining how the companies are influenced by external institutions, particularly focusing on institutions, and how the companies respond to the institutional expectations and potentially reshape the institutions. So literally, this theory talks about how the companies interact with their institutional environment, with the regulations, policies, ethics, culture, so all these kind of rules and norms imposed on them. So first, what are institutions? Academic definition of institution is the established normative and regulative structures that are used to guide and control the behavior of social actors. A little bit ambiguous. So let's show some examples. Institutions can be formal and written ones. For example, contracts, regulations, laws, sanctions. It can also be informal or verbal. For example, social norms, customs, local culture, traditions, taboos. These are not written in papers like ask you, or you have to abide by your legal responsibilities. So these are always implicit, and you have the option to choose. But all those formal rules or informal norms, verbal or non-verbal, they are the rules and norms. People have a consensus that we should follow them. So this is what regulative and normative structure means. People know these are the rules and norms, the structures from the external environment we need to follow. So there is a pressure. So when you have those kind of institutions around, you know this is a rule you need to follow. So there's a overall consensus in the society. So only those rules and norms can be considered as institutions. The problem is a company usually face more than one institutions. They usually face different expectations from their external environments. So that's what we call the institutional complexity. organizations may face various institutional demands from different stakeholders. So the expectations from what your customer expects, what your regulator expects, what your local community expects, they may not be the same. Sometimes they may even be conflicting. So whether the company responds appropriately and prioritize the right expectations can lead to variations in organizational structure, strategies, and performances. So if you look at this graph shows you all types, most of the major types of stakeholders involved in organizational activities. So they all have different expectations on organizations. Please be aware, these are external expectations, external demands from the environment of a company, but not all of them are institutional demands. So external demands doesn't mean institutional demands. External pressure doesn't necessarily mean institutional pressure. Institutional pressure needs to come from the established rules and norms. So this is a concept. So you can see the different expectations from different stakeholders on a company. So you can see industry, financial institutions, shareholders, employees, government, union, public, customers, suppliers. Which of these stakeholders would expect a company to increase efficiency and make more profits, and who would expect a company to add, to improve public value, to contribute to public value? So if you look at all the stakeholders, you'll find out those on the right, on your left, top left, so you will see those stakeholders, they are the ones who want the company to achieve more efficiency. The financial institutions will evaluate your performance based on your efficiency, based on your economic output, your revenue. However, on the other hand, we will have the public, the unions, the government will want you to have the legitimacy. You need to follow their rules, expectations. You can't just focus on your financial revenue without thinking about what is good for the society. You can't just keep producing producing the products without considering its harm to the environment. So as you can see, the companies can face different requirements, different demands from its institutional environment. And sometimes conflicts can happen. The company needs to navigate those conflicts. And for institutional theory, the main idea is that how companies respond to institutional demands, the various institutional demands, will have an important impact on its performance. Let's do a practice. So multiple choice. There are 6 options of institutions. Six options for you to choose. Which one do you think is can be considered institutions or institutional demands a company typically faces, according to the institutional theory we just talked about? So there are more than one answers. So think about it. 1 minute, everyone. Think for 1 minute. Which of these options can be considered as institutions or institutional demands? Which are not? Which ones are not? You can check our on your screen. You can check the slides before this multiple choice question. So this is important when you apply institutional theory. You need to first identify what is an institution in your context. Anybody has an answer? So A, B, C, D, E, F. So first, let's go through them one by one. A, government regulations. Who think it is an institution or institutional requirement? So if you think it is, it's a correct answer. Please raise your hand. Anybody think government regulations are examples of institutions or institutional demands? Okay, I see many hands. Yeah, that's a correct answer. Government regulations are institutions, typical institutions, formal ones. We call them formal written ones. And second one, professional standards or certifications. Do you think it is an institution or institutional demand? If you think, raise your hand, please. Okay, I assume some of you are still thinking, but those who raise your hand, you are correct. These are institutions developed not by government, by industry standards, professional reputable associations. They develop the standards that companies also need to follow. The third one, personal leadership style of the CEO. Do you think it is an institution? No hand? Yes, that's correct. So this is not really an institution. It's a personal leadership style is something internal. So that's an internal behavior and internal value of the CEO. Internal style. It's a style of the CEO, personal style of the CEO. It's not really something like coming from the external environment. It's also not a rule or norm that many companies need to follow. The fourth one, social norms with the local community. Who think this is institution or institutional demands? Yeah, I see hands. Good, correct. This is the second type of institutions we talk about. They are informal. They are not written. They are less explicit, but we still need to follow them. The companies still need to follow them. For example, ethics. So in your local community, ethics, social culture of a community. If you are working with your customers, if you are working with your local community, you are selling your products to your local community, you need to follow those kind of informal norms. For example, you need to, these days, companies often emphasize environmental sustainability. It's not a strict law. So if you are not following these rules, you are going to go to the jail or not. But this is the societal's expectation, community's expectation on you, on the company. So the fifth one, competitive pressure from rivals. Is this institution or institutional demand? So yes, that's correct. Competitive pressure from your rivals come from the external environment, but they are not regulative or normative structures. They are not like rules or norms that most companies need to abide. The last one, market-based performance benchmarks. This one a little bit tricky. Do you think the last one, the market-based performance benchmarks, are institutional? Are institutions? Do you think? Can you explain what it is? Or instinct?
I just think because it's based on market, and in this market we supplier, buyer, all expand on this.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like a rules, but it's not. It's just we all obey the rules, but we don't say.
I agree with you in that aspect. Your instinct is correct. This one is a little bit ambiguous, and we need to see it based on who decides the market benchmarks. So you are thinking, your way of thinking is you think this is a market expectation, right? So that's correct. So if you see it, this is the expectation from your market. For example, from your shareholders, you expect my company, my shareholders, my investors will expect my company perform very well and meet those market-based performance benchmarks. Then that can be considered and justified as an institutional requirement. However, if if this market-based performance benchmarks are defined by your company, by yourself, as internal goals, then that's not institutional requirements, institutional demands. So this one is a little bit tricky because it really depends on who decides those performance benchmarks for you. So if it's decided by the external institutions, by your external shareholders, overall the investors' expectation on the financial institutions, then it can be considered as institutions. But if it's defined by yourself as goals, then that's not. So good, everyone, very good. So I will consider we have understand the notion, the concepts of institutions. So in your case studies, in your assessment, you will be able to know whether my context is suitable for applying institutional theories. So for companies, as I said, how they respond to institutional requirements will decide their success based on institutional theory. So when they face those kind of conflicting demands from their institutional environments, companies can have different responses. The first type of response is what we call conforming. So it means the company just adopts those practices that can enhance their legitimacy, follow all those regulations, follow all those policies, what society government expects from them. And although they may lead to low efficiency. The problem is legitimacy doesn't necessarily lead to efficiency. As we can see, if you really follow all government instructions, regulations, sometimes it can increase your cost the cost of your internal operations. For example, at the beginning of 2000s, that's also the time. That's a time when internet technology emerged, and many companies started to adopt what this kind of called enterprise management systems in their companies, which means the whole company use one system to collect all the information together, and all the members can access it. It's kind of like today, people are preaching for every company should implement AI and machine learning. At that time, not many companies really know what an ERP system means for them and what an ERP system can do. So it's just coming from the industry. Okay, this seems to be an industry expectation. There seems to be a pressure that we need to apply this new system, new digital technology. But actually, they don't really know how to do that. So what they do, they just want to adopt the system, spend a lot of money, but didn't really know how to operate it, how to use it to improve their current processes. And actually led to a lot of low efficiency or even failed practices, even cause disruptions to the existing work processes. So this is what we call conforming. I just check whatever the external environment wants from me, expect from me, without understanding how it can really help improving myself. So conforming doesn't usually lead to the ideal outcome for the company. The second one is called decoupling. It means symbolically, the company symbolically adopts required practices to appear compliant while not changing actual practices internally. It can lead to both positive or negative outcomes. So it means you just adopt those practices the external environment expect from you superficially. I just want to show I have done it, but internally I didn't really do it. I just want to show to the public I have done that. So example is Wells Fargo. It's a bank. So in its history, it had a significant scandal that it created a lot of empty accounts, fake accounts, to show to the public it has a lot of sales, to show its increasing sales. But actually, all those accounts are fake. And it shows to the company we have a lot of sales, and we are customer-centric, and we have a lot of trust in our customers. Our customer has a lot of trust in us. So this is an image it shows to the public, but behind it, actually doing this kind of behaviors and actually destroy its trustworthiness to the public. So this is a difference. There is a big difference in terms of how this company does in front of the public and what the company does behind internally. So this is called decoupling. As you can see today, we have many companies claiming that they are contributing to environmental sustainability. But internally, are they really doing that practice? So are they just claiming, or are they really practicing environmentally friendly practices? This is a question. And some companies just do it for image, say it for image, didn't really do it. That's also a decoupling practice. Facing and navigating conflicts. Some companies choose to prioritize efficiency and organizational goals, or seek a balance between their own goals for efficiency and the institutional demands for legitimacy. So as you can see, some companies, thinking, I need both. I need the efficiency, internal efficiency, and I also need the legitimacy in front of the public to the government. Then what we do, we try to find a balance between them. Or you have to make a choice. Choose to prioritize one of them. So an example of prioritizing one of them is Apple. So Apple's iPhone, as we know, the information is all encrypted. So personal information is encrypted. But once there was criminal in the US, the FBI requested Apple to provide the personal information of the suspect to them so they can investigate. But Apple, after rounds of negotiation and consideration, actually rejected this request and prioritized its commitment to the customer instead of following the regulatory commitments. So it actually made a choice between the two. This issue was quite significant at that time, as Apple tried to prioritize the privacy instead of the legitimacy to the government. The last one is probably the most inspiring one. It's the organizations, entrepreneurs, they actually try to change the institution so the institution can support their own activities. So some actors have the resources, skills, interest to challenge or change established practices. These are called institutional entrepreneurs, these peoples. So they can introduce changes by promoting alternative practice or interpretations. For example, we know EV, electric vehicles, was not, if you call it even 6 years ago or 7 years ago, EV was not an important market. It's not even a promising market, but now it is. So what changed? So what is the effort put inside by changing the current institutional landscape? So the companies can face different or even conflicting demands or requirements from their institutional environments can be reflected in many practices everywhere. Sometimes we probably didn't even notice, especially when you are facing those kind of informal, tacit, unwritten norms. So it's much easier, based on our practice and multiple choice question, I can see most of us have no difficulty of identifying those formal, written institutions, regulations, policies. That's much easier to identify. The problem is sometimes those kind of institutional demands, institutions, they are implicit. For example, in this case of Amazon, we know Amazon is a marketplace. We can buy many things. We can compare different sellers, products, and make our purchase. But I don't know if anybody noticed that in Amazon marketplace, you always see something like this. Amazon self-brand. So the brand, which means the product brands developed by Amazon itself. Usually it's those kind of, those kind of products easy to produce, but you need to use them daily, like toilet paper. So this is a brand produced by Amazon. It's also it's sold in its own marketplace. But this is a controversy in this act of Amazon So all these brands like developed by Amazon, also sold in its marketplace, is called Amazon Basics. So you probably see this label. The quality is quite good. But this Amazon has been facing this kind of controversy, is that, okay, you are the marketplace, developer. So you develop the marketplace, and you are the mediator between the sellers and the buyers. And now you are joining this competition by yourself, which means you are designing the rules for the competition, you are part of it. So this is a controversy. Has been a controversy that Amazon has been using its data analytics to identify those goods, those products that sold well in its marketplace are produced by other sellers. And then it just try to copy it and sell in the market. Usually this kind of products, you can see it's like easy to copy products. And Amazon will put it on the top of its, in your search results. This is Amazon has been facing the criticism of unfair competition. So in this case, it's not very clear that institutional theory can be used to understand it. But if you see, Amazon actually facing two types of institutional demands, requirements from the outside. One type of demands, one type of expectation is the sellers, the buyers, or even the normal people. They would expect Amazon to be a fair market organizer and mediator. You should be a fair mediator of the market to ensure all transactions are clear, transparent, and fair. But on the other hand, Amazon also faces those kind of demands, for example, from its shareholders. I want to increase my revenue. So I want to make more money, generate more revenue. So I'm not fully satisfied being a market organizer and mediator. I want to join the competition and sell my products and make more money. So there is a conflict between efficiency, the demand of efficiency, and the demand of being a legitimate market organizer. But these are none of these institutional expectations are specified in documents or in laws, in regulations. That's why it's controversial. That's why there's no laws that can say, okay, Amazon just cannot be part of the competition. So different strategies for reshaping the institutional environments, different strategies for if you are not satisfied, if you are not happy with the institutions, you don't want to balance, you don't want to decouple, you don't want to conform. There's one last option for the entrepreneurs or leaders, business leaders, is to reshape it. Limited, but there are limited measures, but there are some. First, you can improve your products and change the customer behavior. So this is Airbnb. So many of you may remember when Airbnb was initially introduced. So it faced a lot of controversy, including the local regulation, and also it's not following the rules of the rental market or rental policy, rental regulations. But what Airbnb does is to make a product as good as possible, especially it's cheap. And then as long as many customers are willing to use it, to the extent that the regulators need to reconsider their current policy. So that's also feasible. You can change the institutional expectation by changing most customers' behavior, and force the institutions to change itself. Another example is also what I mentioned is EV. As long as you can make EV, reduce the cost of EV, make the charging station everywhere, make it possible for EV to be used by most people, then you change the behavior of people. And also along with the environmental, the sustainability notion here, and you can push the government to revise its existing regulations or add new policies and regulations that are aligned with your internal operations, with your company's value. The second one is called lobbying. So many companies are actually involved in political elections, also have relationships with political leaders so regulators. So this is also one way. The other way is through news media. So through the impact of the news media to popularize the kind of activities and also regulations the company prefer by themselves. So that's for our analysis of the external forces and environments, which is a very important element of analyzing any digital business, as well as something you will need to think about relating to your assignment. So any questions so far? Everyone, any questions? Anything not fully clear? No question? Okay, so if no questions, I'm moving on to the last part of our lecture today. So the internal analysis. So it said, after analyzing the external environment, you understand the 5 forces, you understand your institutional environment. So now you need to look at what is inside of you. What can you leverage? What are the internal resources and capabilities you can leverage to achieve competitive advantage? So the first is Joe Porter's classical framework. So this framework is developed in 1985. So it's called value chain analysis. So it's still the value chain analysis excels in terms of it dissects organizational activities into a sequential process of value creating activities. So it's clear, has some similar features as 5 forces model being structured and providing the pointers for analyzing internal activities. A company is especially competitive if it creates value for buyers that exceeds the cost of production. So that is called profit margin. So literally it's revenue minus the cost of your all your internal costs, production cost, and then divided by your revenue. So that is profit margin. So company is competitive. So what Porter thinks is you can improve the different activities involved in your company. For example, by using digital technology. So this one type of activity in our organization, which he defined as primary activity. So these activities add value through the physical creation of products or service. It's sale and transfer to the buyer, and also its services after sales. These are the primary activities of a company. And there are also support activities. So these activities usually add value by themselves or through important relationships that support the primary or other support activities. So for example, human resource management, admin, procurement, these are supporting the primary activities. But some of you may have noticed this structure is a typical traditional organizational structure of activities. So primary activities include logistics, operations, outbound sales and marketing services. And support include like HRM and also finance or operations. But if you think about examples we used last week, for example, Apple, App Store, as a platform, it's difficult to fit those kind of platform businesses into this framework of activities. So you will, if you are using this to understand the more novel digital or platform business model, you will need to redefine what are the primary activities and support activities of a platform. So this model specifies the business activities where digital technologies are most likely to have a strategy impact. So you can examine how digital technology impact on each of these primary or support activities and how it's contributed to the overall profit margin of a company. So here's the list. This is still based on the traditional notion of what organizational activities should be like. So these are the list of examples of primary activities and also of support activities. So for example, for improving the inbound logistics, so raw material is incredible example. So Walmart system is literally, its system was in-store system, is bridged, is kind of interfaced with its supplier system. So whenever you have checked out, because we are scanning a code, the QR code, every time you check out something, you bought something, and then Walmart system will update on whether they still have enough stock in the store. So if there is not enough stock, the suppliers will automatically receive the message, okay, we need to send more these goods to Walmart. So this hugely improved the inbound logistic process of Walmart through their digital systems. This another example is to use the data analytics for, I'll say this is traditionally, so you see here, traditionally it's included into the support activities in data analytics. But this is, as we talked about last week, more and more companies, actually data analytics is at the center of their business, of their value creation. So if you are studying this kind of novel organizations, platforms, so you may need to redefine which are primary activities and which are support activities in your case. So for example, data analytics, this is a website or a service provider called the retail equation. So the sole product provided by this company is data analytics. So it literally analyzes all our return information. So you buy something from, let's say you buy something from Zara, and then you want to return it, and Zara accepts it, you just ship it back. But this company will analyze all the information about our returns, refunds and returns, and identify those fraudulent refunds. Especially someone for example, buy a pair of shoes, wear for a few weeks, and then return it, and claiming that it's a faulty product. So these customers are what this company try to identify from their data. Okay, if they identify this kind of customers, they will inform their service buyers, for example, Zara, this kind of companies, and tell them, okay, if this customer requests another refund again, then you need to be careful. This is probably a fraudulent refund. So this is the service, is actually the product, the primary activity of this company. Still, shortcomings, weaknesses of the classical frameworks. So easy, clear are their advantages. But if you think about when you are breaking down your company's activities into separate activities that you will use digital technology to improve individually, this is a process that's completely linear. And also the interactions between different activities, resources, and capabilities actually, they disappear from this analysis. So as we know, different departments and activities of a company, they are not working independently. In real situations, they interact with each other. For example, HRM will find all those kind of suitable personnel for all other departments. But this framework will not account for that, the interactions. Also, do these activities today only operate within the organization? For example, we talk about complementers to platforms, the game and app developers. So which part of the activities should we include those people? They are not employees of the platform company. So it also emphasizes the activities and processes and the configurations. Use this to expand their performances, but does not explicitly talk about the unique firm-specific resources and capabilities that underlie these activities. And therefore, they cannot explain why some companies do outperform others despite their similar internal activities and processes. So their processes, many companies, especially if they are producing same products in the same industry, their internal processes are largely similar. But why do some perform better than others? What is unique to the one that performed better than others? So this framework cannot answer that. Also, it heavily focuses on tangible activities like production, logistics, and may underemphasize the importance of intangible assets such as knowledge, culture, and brand. So these are very important assets of a company, but we can't see it clearly in this framework. So therefore, the last theory I would like to introduce to you today is to complement this value chain analysis or similar analysis that only focus on the broken down of activities and how digital technology improve them separately. So resource-based view is also a classical theory. It emerged with this famous seminal article of Barney, From Resources and Sustained Competitive Advantage. So in this paper, Barney proposed a framework, a theory that provides insights in why some competitors are more profitable than others by focusing on the uniqueness of their resource, internal resources and capabilities. In other words, what is unique, special about your internal resources and capabilities that make you excel? From resources, so it includes all assets, capabilities, organizational processes, information, knowledge. So now you can see it includes both tangible and intangible resources. And the last one, because this theory, it emphasizes the importance of unique resources. So the strategy it will suggest is, company, you need to notice, identify such valuable resources upfront before everybody investigates. You should identify it earlier and make upfront investment in it to gain competitive advantage. This is the suggestion of the resource from the RD review. So 3 types of firm resources. Tangible resources, much easier to understand. So it's patents, copyright, factories, your materials. So these are all tangible. Intangible resources are those a little bit difficult to identify, but you can also see, for example, the human resources, the innovation department, for example, innovation team, or reputational resources, their internal culture. These are important resources, but they are not something you can touch or see clearly. Also, organizational capabilities are also needed for them to transform those resources into outputs. Resources are just there. You need the capability to organize them and transform them from inputs into outputs over time. So in the RDV view, we emphasize 4 the resources that have 4 important features are the most important resources you should invest upfront. The first is a valuable resource, so which means a resource enable a firm to develop strategies that improve its efficiency and effectiveness. So make your customers ready to buy. These are valuable resource. But that's not enough. This resource you would like to make upfront investment should also be those that are not possessed by a large number of other companies. Also, this should be the resources that other companies cannot easily obtain, cannot copy. For example, those kind of resources are hard to copy, are unique. For example, they have the physical uniqueness. So let's say I'm a mining company, I'm a let's say like electricity company, and my company, my factory, my power factory are just next to the river. So it's like you just use the power, you use this location superiority to reduce your cost. Or some companies, they just possess this kind of unique resources, like Russia and Ukraine. They possess an important unique gas that you use for producing CPUs and GPUs. So when they are involved, so the whole the CPU and GPU market can suffer. And the second is called past dependency, which means it's something related with resources accumulated over time related to your history. For example, your reputation, brand reputation. When you hear about Disney, you will soon know this is a good company, interesting company that provides you with this kind of various ways of entertainment products, films, creative. So this is something come to your mind. And the third one is causal ambiguity. Which means how this resource contribute to the company's performance is not always clear. And how they are developed, how this kind of resources are developed are also not very clear. For example, company's culture. So we always praise for example, let's say Google's innovative culture. But even though these people visited Google and then visited those kind of tech giants who keep innovating, they still cannot copy it because they don't really know how this culture was brought about. So this is what we call causal ambiguity. And also a type of resource that is socially complex. For example, the relationship, the interpersonal relationship between your employees and between your employees and your external collaborators or suppliers. These are things that are socially complex and also developed through interpersonal interactions. It's very hard to copy because it varies from individuals, across individuals. So these are the resources that are hard to imitate. And also all these resources need to be well organized through the company's systems, processes, and structures in place to support their expected use. They need to be transformed through developing the necessary processes and internal processes and systems and structures to make all these resources contribute to the final product. Okay, I don't know if anybody, if anybody in this class not buying from Zara, or not knowing Zara. Anybody don't know Zara? It's nobody. So do you buy from Zara? You buy. I also buy from Zara. So quite popular brand. So we all know it. We know Zara updates its seasonal products like almost every 2 weeks. We know Zara has like over 10,000 new styles every year. But what we know less is behind it. What makes it possible? So Zara is a fast fashion brand. So it's actually has introduced new styles, not based on season. Normal brands will have like 4 seasons, new styles, or 2 seasons new styles every year. But for Zara, it's updating almost every 2 weeks. So it is one of the most prominent players in the fast fashion. So the focus of Zara's business is fast. So from design to production of the clothing, so it takes like less than 2 weeks. So it reduces a lot of the procedures, to improve the efficiency. For example, Zara doesn't really spend much time and money on design. So it just goes to those fashion, let's say, like LV or like this kind of top brands, luxury brands having the fashion shows. Zara just goes there and see, okay, what kind of design I can integrate. And then, okay, this kind of design looks good. Looks like it's going to appeal to the most of my customers. I just cut the expensive designs, cut those expensive materials, and make it a similar version, but different, but quite similar version, but with with much lower costs and at much faster speed, and then produced in its factory in Asia and also in Turkey, and then send it back quickly, delivered to its market, to its physical stores. So Zara traditionally has a very strong, highly efficient supply chain, very complete, highly efficient, and also another important resource of Zara is its physical store. So before pandemic, we go to Zara store like probably every month. So there was a survey in Spain, like saying like the customers go to Zara, visit Zara like 7 times a year. Each customer visits Zara at least 7 times a year on average, which means the physical store, when you go to Zara, when you visit the store, you see something, the likelihood of you will buy something will significantly increase. So their physical physical presence used to be superior advantage and strategy of Zara. So they spend a lot of time on their physical stores, on their location, and on their supply chain. However, In 2018, Zara started to introduce click and collect, which is a popular feature and common feature now. But at that time, Zara was one of the first in introducing it in online retailing. So it resulted, but this process is not very smooth, and actually the new feature resulted in long fitting room and also checkout lines, because the physical store was not really organized in the way that is suitable for this kind of online and also click and collect delivery. So in 2020, Inditex announced its plan to spend $3 billion on tech tools that further integrate its online store shopping experiences. So the shortcomings of Zara's business model is it cannot integrate the new online experiences effectively with its existing physical store experience. So after the investment, huge investment, so the process is much better, much more improved. So now we go to Zara, you just input your code, pick up your order, and automatically the robot will find your package in the storeroom and deliver it to you. And then you will receive it. Probably a whole process less than 5 minutes. But that was due to Zara's large investment into this process in 2020. As we know, in 2020 what we had, what started? COVID-19. So COVID-19, we cannot shop in store, shop physically. So this investment has brought huge advantages to Zara in its competition during pandemic, because they can just apply this process, the whole online processes directly, and with very efficient process. They have already worked on it for over 2 years. And the customers can just use this online purchasing, online processes, go to the store, minimize the time they need to spend in store. So it takes a long time for their as competitors like H&M to catch up, because the whole process of streamlining the online and physical store shopping experiences and integrating them seamlessly takes a lot of effort, investments into different resources and capabilities. Okay, so how do we understand Zara's situation, Zara's competitive advantage through the RBB analysis? So first, we need to look at what were its existing valuable resources and capabilities before the pandemic. That is, the physical store and management, highly efficient supply chain, while as the new resources and capabilities that are invested upfront. The digital infrastructure for online sales and delivery. We configure the in-store spaces and procedures to align with the online experience. But the more important question is, to what extent are these new resources and capabilities are inimitable, which means you can sustain your competitiveness over time. So this is a more critical question. If we see the current situation that most companies, most like competitors of Zara, have implemented similar processes, we may find if it's not that difficult to imitate if it's just a single online shopping app many companies can implement. But if you delve deeper into its integration with its current capabilities, you will find out the process. Zara actually built a supply chain platform to integrate the new processes with the old processes, so they won't conflict with each other. So if you look at from that aspect and delve deeper into what Zara has done behind, you'll find it's much harder to imitate when the company integrates new resources perfectly within its existing resource portfolio. Okay. So this is a process. Today we're mostly focusing on the analysis part. So this is will also be important for you to conduct your initial analysis, either for your group case or for your assessment tool case. So then, as I said, this is a simple version. In real practice, you will probably find companies make changes to their strategies over time. As I said, time is an important dimension. Everything can happen in the middle after you have decided your initial strategy. You say there are some changes, your competitors change. There are new opportunities. There are unexpected regulatory constraints. There are probably you have faced like failed experimentation, like Zara has an initial failure in their implementation, its development of the click and collect feature. So all this can influence your strategy process and make you reanalyze and refine your digital business strategy. And therefore, you'll probably see the difference between the realized strategy of the company, the final version, and their initial intended strategy. Okay, everyone, be aware of this difference and think about your case dynamically. That's all for today. And enjoy the rest of your day. And for those